certain things on this side, we'll see them on the other, because God is just talk about that one.
So now we know in this text it was going to give me the moment of introspection.
Pass in order to win a fight.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Life in Mid-Flight. I'm here with your host, Jasiah Patterson.
Hey, y'all.
Nathan Patterson.
What up, y'all? I'm about to get delivered.
I'm another one of your co-hosts, Stacey Richardson. And we have a special guest today. This is Dr. Jennifer Summerlin.
Dr. J.
Dr. Jennifer Summerlin is a licensed marriage therapist. She is a published author in the psychological journals. She's also a professor of psychology, and she's just on the couch with us today, continuing in our
Marital discussions.
thank you, in our marital discussions,
Marital
all
assassins.
about marital assassins. Thank you very much. That series all about those things, those foes to marriage.
Yeah.
Dr. Jen, let's open up with a little bit of talking about just some signs of mental illness.
I thought you were going to say, let's open up with prayer. I was going to say, okay. I thought you were going to say, but I don't know that like that. We're not going to do that.
Signs of mental illness, they kind of come out a little different in different people. So we first got a person, like if you want to talk about within a relationship, people like to hyper-focus. And so I like to pay attention to what they hyper-focus on.
Hyper-focus.
What's hyper-focus?
Hyper-focus is when you basically drill right into certain things. So if a person is really big, like for instance, when me and my fiance first got together, we're both big on honesty. And so I knew something was up with that because I know why I'm big on it. But I'm like, nah, dude, something's been up with you. So I have to pay it. No, it's like, it's not a bad thing, but you got to think about it. If a person is all about honesty, 9 times out of 10 they've been lied to.
Of course.
So I had to proceed with caution. You can't just, you have to take care of that person when you know they're hyper-focusing.
Was that a trigger for you?
No. For me to worry, like dating someone who had that?
Yeah.
No. Ironically, quite the opposite. I found that to be refreshing.
Oh, wow.
That means if you that worried about honesty, I dare you to lie to me.
Exactly. There you go.
You cannot tell me that you value honesty and then give me your dishonesty.
Yes.
I like that.
So that means you have to walk your talk. So I've been lucky in that respect, or blessed in that respect.
That's what's
But
up.
you get people who certain things might work them or trigger them in a certain way bigger than what it would anybody else. So if they get a phone call from somebody, or you notice the way they are, like, no offense, but the way some people are with their families, if it's them and then their family, and there's like this boundary, and you can actually tell the boundary, and it's like, okay.
It's like almost like, where do you fit in?
Exactly. Because it's like, okay, I know I'm going to be over here with you, but when will you go over there? And that doesn't happen. Some people have a tendency to get very anxious, so they'll worry about things incessantly. They will sit there and they'll yell, and they don't even realize they're doing it, raising their voices when stuff happens. And it's so critical that you have to pay attention. And that's why people don't like doing all the extra work, because they're like, that takes too much work to do. How you pay that much attention?
That is
you
work.
shut up and look.
I think that's the problem right now. A lot of people don't want to do the work because it takes commitment, it takes value, it takes understanding that, you know, it takes two people for a relationship to work. So if you don't want to do the work, then what? What's the sense of staying in a relationship?
It's all for novelty purposes. People get into it, some of their relationships, and that's why I tell people, they're like, oh, well, I got into this relationship. Why else would you think I would get into it? I'm like, actually, marriages and relationships are nothing more than 2 or more people with a similar plan. It doesn't have to be my plan or yours or anybody else's. Y'all could be truly in it as a transactional basis.
Ooh.
It doesn't matter to me. My thing is, as long as y'all realize it, we're good. That's 2 less people off the street.
Can you touch on that transactional part? That thing
Because
like
you get
stung me.
people who are givers and takers. And so a giver will hook up with a taker. And so you'll get a person who loves to be needed. So what are you going to do? Attract a person who's needy. And as long as the 2 of you know this and you're aware, cool.
Right.
The last thing I need is for one of you not to realize it. Because then once you realize it, you're going to start complaining. Why are you complaining? You want it to be needed. This person needs you. Oh, you're upset because you stopped because the job is now done. Your ego has been That thing has been met now. Now you want to go. You want this person to be independent. No, that doesn't work like that.
But doesn't it come to a point where that gets played out?
It does, but the thing is that there has to be a reality. The person involved in any relationship has to be realistic. If you want this, you have to know what you're in it
crossing my
for.
legs on this one. Boy.
When a person wants to be needed,
School's in session.
and like I told some of my clients when that happens, I said, listen, there's a difference between what I do for a living and what you're trying to do. Here's the reality. What I do for a living, I'm off the clock past a certain hour. Even my voicemail reads different. It's like, listen, you have an issue, you need to go call 911. Jennifer goes to bed. Dr. J is off the clock. Jay from around the way is on deck. I'm out. You're trying to be needed.
Right.
This is a 24/7 gig. There are no off times, no downtime, no nothing. This person could be needy at 2 a.m. and they're going to want you. See, they don't want me because you have to call and you need to keep your psychoses under check until 9 a.m.
Right.
Unless you just want to go to the hospital. With you, you want to be needed so badly. Guess what? They're going to call you. They're going to bother you. They're going, well, why are they doing this? Or why is he doing this? Why is she doing? Because you keep picking up the phone and showing up. You make yourself available.
Yep.
You have to think about what you're doing
Access.
and change it up a little bit. If you don't want that, then stop doing it.
So when oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was going to kind of slightly veer, but I want you to finish.
So what comes to the point where you have to disconnect yourself from that?
From the person entirely, or just change up the dynamic? Which one
Just
are you
change
trying
up
to do?
the dynamic.
You can play around with the formula all you want. Sometimes I try to make myself unavailable or inconsistent. So every time they call, if I know this is what I'm getting, I don't answer the phone.
So you just start ghosting.
Interesting.
No, I get inconsistent. I'll answer it later. I'll call you back later. Because I know I'm now in your cycle now. So you're going to get upset about something. You're going to get triggered. Now I'm automatically in the cycle on the way to your recovery. No.
Ooh,
I'll keep that already. So I don't answer my phone.
that's a good book title right there. On
I'm
the way
busy.
to recovery.
I'm busy now. So I don't jump to answer the phone. I'll call you later. Sometimes I'm really busy. Other times I just don't make myself as accessible. I'll call you back and we'll see what you look like about an hour or so.
Yeah.
I get inconsistent. That way you learn not to rely on me.
Right.
Because I don't like to be needed. Honestly, I really don't.
Got you.
You're not a baby. You're not an invalid. I don't see why you need me.
So now I'm wondering, what other kinds of maybe mental illnesses have you seen that maybe have really had an effect on people's relationships?
Borderline personality disorder.
Ooh, Lord Jesus.
Okay, talk to us about that.
It's similar to bipolar in that you get your highs and your lows. The difference that we basically notice is that with bipolar, you really don't know. You don't remember your highs. You really don't. The manic phases, you really don't remember them all the time. Borderline, you tend to know them.
Okay.
And so usually borderline is triggered by some type of trauma. It's not up to us to decide what that trauma is. They perceive it. So if it's an abandonment thing, for them it's a trauma.
Yeah.
So they're going to get stunted. They're going to respond a certain way. And unfortunately, when you're in a relationship with someone of that magnitude, it doesn't mean they can never be in a relationship.
Right.
It just means that untreated, like you don't deal with it. It's like walking in a minefield.
Sounds toxic though.
Extremely. Because the reality of it is, it's hot and cold. They need you, but get away. And they need to be needed. They make you jump through hoops. And it's so like a baby looking for their parent type of mentality. And it's like you can't meet the needs all the time. And so you just got to let it phase out unless they're willing to get the help.
So self-sabotage plays an intricate role in that.
It can. I don't think some of them realize it. I really don't. I think some people are just very deep involved in their own stuff. I don't think they realize they're doing it.
Yeah,
and then that gets a little crazy.
And I can relate to that. I had a person that was like intricate in my life, and all of a sudden, the person was like, "Yo, I don't want to be around you. I don't want to do this. I want to do this. I don't want to do family no more." I was like, "Yo, what?" I'm like, "What's going on up there?" Like, what's left me in the loop. I'm like, "Okay, well, okay, whatever." You
get a lot of that. You get attachment issues. People who have had very enmeshed, meaning like the boundaries are so blurred. You can't tell who's the parent, who's the child. And so when they get into relationships, same exact thing plays out. You get needy parent-child dynamics, and then what happens? you get a kid who grows up and they don't know how to be appropriate in that respect. It becomes very difficult, but it takes patience.
Adult child.
Yeah, it gets really difficult. It gets really difficult. There are easier things to deal with, and it all depends on motivation. The motivation, insight, the willingness to want to own up, because sometimes it's really difficult to do. So I don't take any of that for granted. It just gets really so with a lot of people.
So now you mentioned some triggers. You mentioned abandonment. What other triggers? I was wondering about the holidays. Here we are, right here on this Memorial Day weekend. And that may have some people thinking about their lives, thinking about things that may have happened to them. We just passed Mother's Day. What do you have to say about that? Holidays, those celebrations being in
You
triggers.
have to kind of work with the person a lot of the time. You can't force them unless you just know automatically. I'm not big on people forcing people to do certain things because it's not necessary all the time. They've probably worked out a system. And so let's say a person, like, for instance, you already know, I lost my mother back in 2015. People were bugging me, and that's basically what I called it. Christmas, are you okay? And I'm sitting up. I basically already figured out what I was going to do, and I was content with it.
Yeah.
I was going to reenact, and it made me feel better. It was me and my grief. Reenact what my mother would do for Christmas. So I woke up early. I was playing music. Me and the dog are up watching TV, and I made pancakes. And we just sitting up in there. All you hear is the Chipmunks Christmas playing in the background. They're like, I'm like, Merry Christmas. They're like, I didn't think you'd be okay. For what? Your mother passed. I know I was at the funeral. I was there. You know, I was there with her. Frequently, you know, I was there.
Right.
But then when you hit Mother's Day and stuff like that, people want to say things. And I'm like, listen, I have a system. People want to say, oh, aren't you going to the cemetery? Freak, no. Do you know how many people at that cemetery? People who, no offense, they did their parents wrong. Now all of a sudden they showing up, doubled up on top of each other at the cemetery. I go the day before or the day after. I go when the mood. I go when the mood strikes.
Right.
Wow.
If something happened to that person, whether even if it's just something big, it doesn't have to be mom related. If it happened on Mother's Day and a person gets triggered, if they're willing to talk to their person about it, whether it's their spouse, it's like an adult child, it's their friend or whatever, cool. If this is what they want to do, I'm usually all for respecting it. If this is how you want to handle it, it's not up to me to agree to it. As long as you're not hurting yourself, it's not illegal. I respect your right to do what you need to do at the moment. And if that means you're just going to shy away for a split second, and that's going to be your down day. Because some people have that. I've noticed that, especially, no offense, some men I've noticed that. They'll have a down day. And that'll just be the day they keep to themselves. Like, I remember my mother had passed, and I had actually bought my house. That's like within the month. And so, what was it? It was Father's Day. It was after Father's Day, around there. We were going to my house to go clean it up or do whatever. My grandfather was alive at the time. He decided he was going to take his car and meet me and my grandmother there. My grandmother did not understand why. And she kept questioning me about it. Why won't he come with us? Why won't he do that? Grandma, it's not a good time. Grandma, it's not a good time. Grandma, is not. Why isn't it? We got Mother's Day because my mother passed several days after Mother's Day. We got Mother's Day. He did not get Father's Day. And the context of which they left things when she passed, it must be really hard. So if he needs to hang back, let him hang back. He said he would meet us there. I respect it.
And that's something that we talked about.
Wow.
I don't know if it was 1 or 2 sessions ago,
Yeah.
but we talked about just giving people space, you know, and time to process.
Absolutely.
You
Especially
know?
men, though, because I think the men, sometimes they just need a chance to just kind of like decompress.
Yeah.
And I think women have a tendency to nag.
Yeah.
So we can nag and it's just like they can't even think when you're doing, like, I know personally, like, I can't think when somebody's always on my back. Like, I can't be micromanaged, even like at work. Don't
Right.
micromanage me. I
Right.
can't work like that. Just I'm a grown adult, right? Now I'm not just an adult, but I'm a grown adult, because we have adults that are not grown, right? But I can't work unless you give me my job, tell me what to do, trust me that it'll be done.
Right.
And if it's not done, then as, you know, supervisor, boss, you take those repercussions, because that's what I've given to myself, because I haven't done it. So I think that sometimes when we tend to nag men, they tend to want their space. And I think it's perfectly healthy for somebody to want their space to kind of heal the way that they need to heal.
But you also have to listen. Like, I've actually had clients say that before, and they're like, well, I want them to do this, and I want that to, I'm like, do you hear yourself? And they're like, what? I'm like, you said I. This is a selfish move. You want them to feel better because it makes you uncomfortable.
Ooh.
They need to live in their moment right now.
Wow.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with being selfish, don't get me wrong. But you have to think about why you want this so badly. Is it because their feelings make you uncomfortable? If it is, find somewhere to go. I'm serious. Process it for yourself. Find somewhere to go. Give yourself a timeout. Process it. What does because you can't, when a person gets sad, like let's say Nate's sad, and it makes Sia uncomfortable. She may push him to want to talk. But here's the funny part about all that. She doesn't sit in her feelings long enough to realize why is it making her uncomfortable.
Right.
Instead, she jumps out of her skin to go and bother him. All to make her feel better.
Yeah.
Wow.
And you still don't get your time to process because you're busy now having to take care of this.
Right.
Because I thought he was sad.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's not, because and she's going to bottle this up and she's going to package it as, I just want to help him.
Right.
Who says he wasn't helped?
That's true.
This is probably him helping himself.
Yeah.
Now, unless he comes back worse than when he showed up, or if you notice the way he's doing it is not helping him, helping your kids, helping anything, that's a different story. But if it's his way and it's actually working for him right now, it doesn't mean it's going to work like that forever.
Right.
If it's working like that right now, nothing wrong with being a little hands off for a period of time. All you can do is offer him suggestions. Like, listen, if you ever want to do something extra, you can do this, you can do that. Because I see you walking around doing this, da-da-da-da. Okay, not a problem. Sometimes a little space won't kill it.
Right.
Absolutely.
Having lost my mother on Mother's Day last year, and the stuff that was like going on in my mind, I was just like anticipating, okay, what I'm going to do when Mother's Day get here. And so Mother's Day got here this year. I was like, okay, now I sat there on the couch and I said, okay, Nathan, you can either be sad or you can do something that she would do. So I played her favorite song, I Always Love My Mother, and it just lifted me. And like when you said, yo, you got to have a plan. It's mental health is real. And I was like, I thought I was gonna be all sad and just somber and everything, but my wife was like, yo, she encouraged me the whole day. She was like checking on me. She wasn't nagging. She was like, are you okay?
That's right. I don't nag.
Nah, that's right. That's why we got 5 kids, y'all. I told y'all that last week. Anyway, but I got through it.
Right.
Yeah.
I got through it in my own way, with no pressure and everything, and I got through
lots
it.
of prayer.
It takes time. It takes time.
Yeah.
And it's all about how the person takes it.
Right.
Because I know when my mother passed, the first thing I said to myself was, if I can make it the first year, I'm good. If I can make it through the first year of everything, because to me it was like just being a baby all over again.
Oh, yes.
A year of
I know
first.
that feeling.
A year of first.
Yes.
If you can make it through that year of first, everything is like a rear view mirror type of deal.
Yes.
It doesn't mean I'm happy all the time about it, but it means that I'm way better.
Right.
The further you get from it, it's like the narrative changes, things change up, and you have to like give people space. Like grief is like really serious and is very fickle, because grief makes people uncomfortable.
Okay, so can I speak to that?
So you don't get over it, you cope with it.
It just changes form. That's it. It changes form. It never goes away, because it basically has to take the shape. My theory has always been the grief mimics or mirrors the person you lost, or the relationship with the person you lost. So it just changes form. And a lot of the time, it's sort of like a cut or a bruise. It's really hurtful in the beginning, but over time, it just dissipates until the point where you know where the scar is, but you don't feel the pain as much anymore. But you still remember it.
Right.
Yeah, I was going to say that just talking to different people, some people just believe that you're supposed to just like get up and just be done grieving like after the funeral. Like, okay. But I'm like, so, I have psych background too. So I'm like, okay, stages of grief, we go through them. But it can take anywhere from 6 months to a year to truly start to really cope with the fact that that person's no longer here.
Oh, yeah.
People can grieve up to like a year or even longer sometimes and have long stages of grief. So would you agree that like that's completely like just normal like to grieve that long?
Well, here's the deal. First off, let's go with the background.
Yeah.
If the person passes away, and this is what I found very interesting with my mother, because she passed away after cancer, 6 weeks or so, she was diagnosed to death. And so what people don't understand, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And I respect that. But then they want to know how I was able to go to work, do everything else. Y'all are just starting to grieve. We've been grieving for the past month and a half.
Right, right.
We've been slowly letting go for the past several weeks.
Yep.
So nobody else knew. We've been dealing with that. So the stages of grief a lot of times already started. But sometimes you can also go back and forth between those stages.
Okay.
So as you go through it, some people, it takes them longer than the year. But definitely I give them the first year to kind of just get through it. But see, it doesn't mean a year from the date that everything took place or from the funeral.
Yeah.
That time from the moment they actually decide to open up and decide to start.
That is
Because
important
a
to
person
say.
could pass,
key. Yeah.
a person can pass and you don't even bother to grieve. And so you'll notice people won't start grieving for like 10 or 15 years. All of a sudden then,
That long?
because it plays out in their relationships, it plays out with their families, it plays out because they stifle it. They don't want to deal right now, and it's really hard. And so now we've reached a point, I'm like, they're probably going to do this. Some people you can just tell looking at them when they're going to break. So I just tell people back off. They're like, well, I'm like, they're going to break in a minute. They're going to fall. Why? Because they're trying to keep themselves busy. So it's eventually they're going to run out of things to stay busy with, and they're going to fall apart.
And I've also noticed too that for some people, I think in most cases there has to be someone, like especially when you deal with families, there has to be someone who is the rock.
Yeah.
Because someone has to make arrangements, someone has to pick up the slack, someone has to plan, someone has to hold things together. So someone has to be the rock. And so the chips may not all fall at once for everyone.
I agree with that.
Because, that would just leave things in shambles. But, for that person, check on your strong friends. Like they always say, you see
What
posts
about
on
your
that.
friends?
Right.
Yeah.
So check on those strong people because they're strong, while they have to be, but I feel like they have to have some time to deal with that also. Stop just putting all of the weight, all of the load on their shoulders. Just kind of be mindful of that.
Yeah, sometimes it comes out like when you don't expect it though.
Yeah.
Because I know like after grandma died and went to the funeral and everything, I didn't cry, anything. And I went back to work that week and they told us to change something in our classroom, something so small, right?
Okay.
Change this and take this down. And I was just like, I'm not taking that down. You guys just want us to change everything. I'm not taking it down. And I was just like, and I just got up and I walked out. But I was just like, it was all that grief.
Yeah.
I wasn't ready to come back yet. And I didn't realize it because I had just been, like you said, stifling it for so
Yeah.
long. So like
It's
it
tough.
does, it's sneaky.
It's tough.
It's sneaky.
It's tough. It's tough.
Just piggybacking on what you said, people expect you to just get up and get over it, but they're not in your shoes. When they cross that threshold, they'll really feel what you feeling.
And you don't wish on anybody because like
No,
that's
never
a
that, never that.
horrible
No,
feeling.
but that
that.
feeling does
Go
come
through.
up occasionally because you do get angry.
Right.
Yeah.
And so when people say that to you, I remember thinking, I'm like, while I would hate for you to go through it, when your person passes, then you come back to me and you tell me about how easy this was.
Exactly.
Yep.
Because that gets a little difficult. But I will be honest, if it's any consolation to Nate here, when someone passes, honestly, it opens the floodgates to other things that you're actually able to grow. Like the farther I've gotten from it, I would tell my godmother because she became my rock because I'm so used to being strong for everybody else. So it just became, she was like covering everything and we would talk all the time. Still do. And so I would tell her, I'm like, I miss my mother, but I don't want her back. Is that a bad thing? She's like, no. She's like, you're you.
I said that.
You said
Yeah,
that
she
recently.
said, you're you.
said
She's
that.
like, this is you being you. She's like, and the farther you get from this, the more I see you and I don't see your mom. So you're your own person. This is who you are. I said, and I felt bad. And for a while, I blamed everybody else. Then I finally held her accountable for her part in her health. So it took a while for me to get to her.
Right.
But that didn't, but I was afraid to do it because I didn't want to harp on my mom.
Right.
But I'm at a better place now where I'm like, everybody looks at me, they're like, oh, you're being rude. I'm not being rude. She's my mother. I love her dearly. But I'm going to call a spade a spade.
That's it.
This is who my mother is. I love her. And loving her means being honest.
Yeah,
That's right.
Absolutely.
And so you have to. But if she didn't pass, I wouldn't have grown as a person because she was the person who I went to for emotional availability, which made it difficult to date. Because in marriage and family therapy, we learn about systems, family systems roll like a machine. And so everybody unconsciously, they take a part.
Yeah.
And when a person dies, you kind of shift.
Agreed.
And so if a person already has a spot, we're all practical. It's like, well, what do I need you for? So of course, Stacy's been there with my dating life. It's been like, okay, cool. I don't really need you. Okay, we're done. I'm done. Like, I found something wrong with you. I'm done. Like, this was it, you know, because I didn't really have any needs.
Yeah.
Because if I thought about it, my mother was my emotional support. I had friends who I could talk to. I have the moral friends who are just bugging out, but who are like cool. I've got friends who are just like on their own stuff, like the wanderers, funny people, serious people, you know, all sorts of people around me. And I'm an independent person. I provide for myself. So what the heck did I need this guy for? Just straight up for luxury purposes. Yeah. So the second he no longer is fulfilling my need at that moment, he can go. But when my mother passed, I found it so difficult, and nobody told me that that would happen, that I was dating wrong for like a straight year. I didn't even want to date the first few months. Somebody threw a person literally at me. And I did not want to date.
Get her.
I am still not thrilled with that. 2 months after to the date, I am still a little messed up about that. 2 months to the date that my mother passed, I went on my first date and I didn't want to go.
Wow.
Because I kept telling the person who tried to set us up, I said, this is not a good time. This is not a good time. No. He's a nice guy. You're nice. It's not about that. This is not a good time.
Right.
And I had to get all that out because I was looking for someone to fill her shoes. And so I would get upset very easily. And now I'm at a place now where I know what I need.
There you go.
And so either I provide it or I have friends who provide it. And I know now when dating, well, now I'm not dating anymore, but you know, I'm not dating anymore. No,
She's not dating,
I don't
y'all.
want old boy to kill me. No, I'm not dating anymore. I'm taking. No, but
show it.
You know,
Bling,
hello,
bling.
hello. No, I'm not. Hello. You know, but like, I know what I need, and he and I did talk about that, and it's important that okay, I need the emotional availability.
Right.
That part is very important. I don't get that enough. And I've always grown up to be a bit guarded. So I need a safe space to fall. Yeah. And that's important. So he provides me that.
So what do you do? I like that when you say you need a safe space to fall, because when I lost my mom, my dad, and my biological dad, and I was like, yo, I felt like nobody was there for me, nobody was there. But my wife's side of the family, they was there, they was calling and all that stuff.
Side.
But
you did have people on your side.
I did, but let me tell you what I did. Of course, Roz, Auntie Thelma, all of them.
Shout out to Auntie Thelma.
And I was pushing them back, because I called up my cousin. I said, yo, I'm done with the family. It's over. Is this? Is that? And nobody wasn't there for me. She was like, Nathan, what is wrong with you? I'm here.
I think it was grief though with you.
It was grief.
It was grief. It was grief because you had a lot of family members that were there, and they would talk to me and just be like, you know, if you guys need anything, he needs to talk to anybody. You want to see y'all. We want to see y'all.
Right.
You want to see y'all. And you
not
just
realizing
weren't.
I was doing the push. I was pushing.
He wasn't. You weren't at that
but
point.
Sometimes people do push away, especially their own family members, because you've lost so many family members and you're afraid to get close to anybody else. Because like, oh great, if I lean on you, you're gonna die too. Okay, never mind. No, you go over there.
Yeah.
If y'all watching this, I'm sorry, y'all. I'm
like,
for
you
real.
stay
I'm
over
sorry.
there in your corner, you over there in your corner, you know.
Yeah.
I can't take that, like, because I lost my mom, my dad, my grandfather, and I was like, when I lost my dad, we weren't all that close, but it was like the first time you deal with a parent loss.
Right.
So I was afraid to lean on my mother. I was like, I'll lean on you. You're going to turn around and die too. I'm like, no, I want to do that.
Yeah.
And then what happened 2 years later, she passes anyway. But I'm like, she passed for a reason. I am fine. I don't, no offense to anybody, I don't need her. I want her here. I don't need her. She gave me everything I needed, so I wouldn't need her. But that's how she raised me, not to need her.
Wow.
She raised me to want her around, not to need her. So it was interesting because when she died, like the guy she was seeing, you would have thought he lost his life. Because Because he leaned on her so much. The rest of us were like, what the heck is his problem? You'd have thought he lost his air to breathe. What the heck is your problem, dude? What did I do? As soon as she passed, Jennifer stopped crying. I went and did what I was supposed to do. Like normally what you see a wife do. I did what you're supposed to do when your person passed. I'm like, give me her cell phone. I'm like, okay. Hello. I'm like, yes, Barbara's passed. Yeah. And they're like, why is Jen consoling others? I'm like, it's okay. You're going to be fine. They're like, wait, her mother just passed like 5 minutes ago. What's up? I'm like, it's okay. We'll let you know when the funeral is. Okay. I just got to go. But you got to do all of that. And it's
but still in the midst of all that, you were still hurt. It was still shock. You're still hurt. I had a sign the night before, so I was kind of already mentally prepped that it was going to happen. Because somehow or another the night before, I just started crying out of nowhere. So I knew that was it. So I was like, all right, cool. Because God has me the whole way. Because he usually I always want signs. I hate surprises. So he usually gives me a sign some kind of way that this is it. So I know, and I'm cool. If I'm worried about it, then that means we got a problem. Man, that just spoke volumes. You just don't know what you just said. That spoke volumes. I received that.
It does play a part, like in your mental health. It plays a part in your relationships. It plays a part in your friendships. And I think it's important. So when you guys are talking about marital assassins and stuff, I'm like, this is the stuff right here that goes unchecked. That when you're in a marriage with somebody, that person is a straight up, no offense, not to make it that bad, but that person's a victim because they don't have a clue as to what's going on. But they're just the recipient of all the nonsense and they don't know why.
Yeah.
And so you have to open up to your person because why else would you be with them if you're not going to be with them?
Yeah.
Wow.
So you have to open up. And some people are just looking to fill a void. And they don't realize it. I'm like, but you got to work through your stuff. You can either work through it before you get to me or while you're with me, but you got to work through it.
And I think that's where like premarital counseling comes into play and the importance of it, because a lot of people don't like to do it. But I think it's important. It's like really important. I know we talked about that on a previous podcast, but like, would you agree like that?
I think
really
it's important that they take it seriously. I've
That's
seen
it.
people. I've seen people
That
6
part right
months
there.
after getting married still in my office because they went through premarital counseling like you would go through DMV training or something. They did it because you were supposed to do it. So they said all the right things, did all the right things, and passed with flying colors. Checked it right off, and then went down the aisle. And so when they saw me, we would go through their marriage, the relationship, and they would tell me stuff. And I said, and I got a lot of women actually who were very, they had a look on their face when I asked the questions. And I would sit there and I'm like, so when you guys, between the first few dates or so, were talking, putting y'all stuff out there on the table, when you were driving home or when you got home, did you for once get selfish and think about what that person's red flags meant for you? And they looked at me like they were not supposed to be selfish. I'm like, no, honey. Selfish. It's a little bit about self. I ain't say get self-centered or self-absorbed. Selfish.
Y'all heard that, right? Selfish.
Get selfish. Because when I see a dude with his issues, I'm like, oh, can I do that? And that's why when I would tell Stacey, like, yo, he gone. She don't even get surprised. Because it's not about me being a flake. It's about the fact that, oh no, Jen ain't prepared. I can't do this.
So you let him know then and there that, nah.
It's only going to get worse. The way they talk about it, how it happens, if they minimize it, maximize it, how much time they spend on it. Oh, it was just this. Or when they drop certain bits of information, my gut does something. I'm like, nope. I can stick around for a little bit to see what this looks like to make sure. But I can already see this is going to be one heck of a ride. No.
Yeah, sit around and all.
So I have to, and that's the one thing having dated has taught me. How to listen to myself. That's why I do not regret any of the people I've been with.
So let me ask you this. When should a person disclose the fact that they're dealing with a mental health issue?
It's
At what point in the relationship?
It's different for different people, but let's go with the reality. You have to be aware of yourself.
Okay.
So some people may need to self-disclose within the first few months. Because the reality is there's a likelihood, especially after them 30 days, that things are going to start to spike. And so you may need to explain yourself before that happens.
Gotcha.
And so like, I think I told Sia, we were talking one night and I told her, I said, in the relationship I'm in now, my fiance, he was married before and he wanted to do couples counseling to save their marriage and it just didn't work. She never showed up. So I realized at that moment, okay, he's in my head. I'm like, he's open to therapy. Okay, cool. So, and I remember talking to a lot of my clients, and the first thing, no matter age, race, socioeconomic status, didn't matter. The first thing a lot of couples said was, if I knew then what I know now, either we wouldn't have been married or we would have been here sooner.
Yeah.
So what I asked my fiance when we first started dating, I said, listen, I know this is a little bit awkward to be asking, but I kind of want to try something different. He's like, what you want to do? I said, since you're open to therapy and I've done therapy like by ourselves, how would you feel? And I know it's a little early. How would you feel about starting our relationship with couples counseling? We have to learn how to argue. We have to learn how to talk to each other. We have to learn how to trust each other. How would you like to do that? And he was like, I'm down. He's like, okay. And we picked our counselor together, and we've been riding with her for the longest. Actually, we got a therapy session
So
with her
you
tomorrow
must have
morning.
known that he was.
We got one early in the morning.
Love it.
Love it.
We pray
Sunday
at night.
morning.
We pray at night, and we see our therapist in the morning.
Now, see, that's what I'm
I
saying.
love that, Jay.
I
Yes,
say
ma'am.
therapy and Jesus.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, because it's like it's like the saying goes, faith without works is death. So what the heck you gonna lean on one if you don't do the other?
That's
That's
right.
right.
I can't keep praying on it. I ain't doing anything. That's just
you go.
crazy.
There
And I
you
can't
go.
keep
Yeah.
doing work and have no faith in the situation.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So
Accountability.
no,
Amen.
we have to have faith in one another. We have to have faith in ourselves. And even when things get crazy, it's okay to pray about that.
Yeah.
Not necessarily because God is no magician. You pray that I usually pray that I have the strength to make it through to the other side of this. Because I'm like, yo, he is straight up bugging. Like we are going up a creek here, dude. I'm like, what are you doing? But you got to do all of that. And it's like so much work invested, but you got to want to do the work.
Know that the person with whom you're working is worth it.
Yeah, because it's all about at the end of the day, when it's all said and done. My whole thing is he's my best friend. And at the end of the day, there's no one else I'd rather do life with.
Aw.
Because that's basically what that is.
Yeah.
You're doing life. I'm not expecting him to be perfect. He doesn't expect me to be perfect.
Right.
He's just who he is. And I think that's cool because we got to be comfortable. If we're not comfortable, it just does not work.
Does not
There you
work.
go.
So true.
Like oil and water won't mix.
No.
Right. No, I like that. I think it's necessary to sometimes adjust our expectations,
Yeah.
And be aware of your needs.
Yeah.
Like, can we even talk a little bit about that? Like, what have you, maybe in your life or maybe through being a therapist, what have you observed or learned about that, people needing to do that?
Well, first off, being a therapist, it's more than just the paperwork and the books. Like I've had to observe a lot of people, and I'm so blessed to have had like so many family members. I grew up in a family full of like married people and people in long-term relationships.
Right.
And I even take advice from people who've been divorced because just because your marriage ain't worked doesn't mean you didn't learn anything.
Right.
So true.
So the reality of it is, it's not about being married. It's about having a married person's brain and gut. And I got that. That part was easy. But it was just a matter of understanding at that point what you need to do. When stuff happens and you're with somebody, communication. Always key.
Awesome.
Always. So when you're doing all this, you have to pay attention to people. You have to understand that. And in my line of work, you get a lot of different issues from people. So I don't even I don't want to self-disclose a lot of people's stuff.
No, we understand.
But it's just like, and what was the original one? What was your other question here? What was your other question here?
Right. No, I was wondering needs and adjusting expectations.
Adjusting the expectations. Your need, first and foremost, like I said, communication.
Right.
Because so many people come out of here with a laundry list. And you don't need that list.
Yeah.
You really don't. Because people like to come out the woodwork. Oh, this person has to look like this. They have to do this. They have to do that. I'm not even a huge dater, and I knew that. As soon as I got so tired. Physically, emotionally, mentally, I got so freaking tired. It just got to the point where, honestly, if people ask me what made me choose the guy I'm with now, I was like, he looked normal. He looked employed.
Oh my God.
Was he my type? Was he my type physically?
Employable.
Was he my type physically? Like off the top, because he's light. I don't really date light skinned guys, but I was like, I had to throw that out because I was like, what the heck do I look like? Talking about I won't date you because of the shade of brown we've got. I'm like, that's nonsense.
Yeah.
So I went out with him and I was like, he seems normal. I'm like, that's a collar that looks like he got a job. Okay, you come here.
But can we just
I'm sorry. As bad as that is, you date, like, some of these people out here are a little off. So you get people who you have to actually do now background checks.
Yeah.
Dating is like a scary game. I had a lot of people with PTSD this past pandemic, all because they didn't do their homework.
Like, girl, what's your credit score?
It ain't even that. Are you married still?
Ooh.
Some folk were still playing around like they were not married or they were single when they were.
Wanted you to be the
We talked
side.
about that in our last
You
one.
got to do a background check. So we be sitting up in here checking y'all profiles and stuff and checking the friends' profiles, just trying to see where the thing drops off.
And it's so funny because, like, my son Christian, he says it all the time. He said, like, I need to see baby pictures,
Thank you.
like, and make comparisons to now.
Yep.
You know, it's that serious.
Because people will lie to protect their ego.
Especially now that they're using all these pronouns. So, like, seriously, like, the pronouns are crazy. Like, you think you're dating in his case, he might think he's dating a she. And it's really, that's how I identify.
No,
I'm sorry. What did God give you down there?
Yeah,
that's what you're identifying with, because God didn't make you what you think it is. That he, she, all that pronoun is stupid. I'm sorry. I'm gonna say it. It's not silly. It's stupid, because we can't change what we were born as. We can't. And wasn't there a time in the DSM before the DSM-5 came out where it was known as like a mental disorder?
I think it was like under gender dysphoria or something.
Yeah.
We had it, and don't worry, because DSM-5 been out for so long. We about to get to 6, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
We can't stand the 5 right now. A lot of us are like not feeling the 5, but it was a couple of things were, and then they got taken out.
Yeah.
Because it causes a lot, because it is a mental thing, because it causes a lot of distress. But I think it caused a lot of distress because you had people who, they didn't have a good support system.
Wow.
So when they were trying to find themselves and figure themselves out and just showcasing their identity, people would try to tell them who they're not. And so the last thing, it's almost like trying to tell you, you're not anxious, you're not depressed. So they're just sitting there getting all freaked out about it, and they get anxious, they get depressed. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, can we just follow this along and see where it goes? But people like to showcase their expectations. They like to control. And honestly, when we do all that type of stuff, we got to throw our expectations out sometimes, because what you expect may not be what you need at that moment. So you have to, it's okay to have a standard. It's okay to have a want or a desire, but you got to be kind of open to whatever comes your way. And if it's something that you can sincerely work with.
And I thought it was so funny that at one point in time, Jen used to say, when she talks about her expectations for the guys that she wanted to date, that, you know, he need only have a job, read, write, recognize shapes and colors. Like,
that's still a doggone standard. That is still a necessity.
Read, recognize shapes and colors.
Recognize shapes. And do you know the ignorance that shows up?
That is a red square.
I need for you to read this. Is that a preposition?
Yeah.
Because you have to know what you can live with at the end of the day.
Like, I don't know if I could have married my husband if he couldn't play Uno. You know what I mean? But because he can read, write, recognize shapes and colors. But because he can read, write, recognize shapes and colors, we're good.
You better know if he can change that wow to any color he wants.
You know, it's just one of those things. You have to adjust. You have to adjust. There are things that are really difficult for some people. If I were that strict on my list, Jason wouldn't be here, honestly, because it would have been just, I'm too stubborn.
Okay.
I wasn't open to receiving it. And I told him that. I said, listen, the difference between me then and me now is that I'm ready to receive it.
So, Doc, when do we disbar the bar that we set?
Man, when you get tired of hitting your doggone head on that bar. When you get tired of hitting your head on that bar, then you can go ahead and take that joker down.
Right.
Because people have some outlandish standards that I'm like, so we're going to get rid of him for this reason, or we're going to get rid of her for that. Certain things I can understand because that's an ego trip, and I don't blame them. Like, for instance, when I was out there before, like when I was dating before, and they were like, would you ever date someone shorter than you? I said, I have tried.
Been there.
I have tried. But I can't because that's an ego thing for me. That's my problem.
Married him.
That's my problem. No, that's my problem. So I can't.
And I stood on my tippy toes to kiss her at the wedding. I sure did.
It was
I'm going to
something.
kiss my bride.
It was something I couldn't even get around. I was like, I was thinking about some of y'all too, and I was like, well, technically, Stacy's a little bit taller. I'm like, if things seem to work out just fine. I was like, I can't do. I'm like, if I can see the top of your head, I can't. I don't know why. I'm like, because the stupid part of this is I don't want to have a Harlem Globetrotter for a kid either. So I don't want, like, you don't want to be with nobody six. I'm already tall. You don't want nothing taller because then you got to give birth to something that's the tallest. I'm like, no, I don't want to make the Guinness Book. That wasn't the goal. So I'm like, I might want something a little bit shorter so I can get some average height. I'm like, that would be lovely.
I can't.
So, it's just certain things, but there were things you have to kind of work around. And as soon as I relaxed the standards, ironically, here goes the funny part, as soon as I relaxed the standards, I got exactly what I asked for.
How about that?
That's awesome.
Look at God.
Because he found you. It says a good man shall find his
Yeah,
wife. He came in, he found
did.
you.
He did. He found me.
Yeah.
And I got
He
rid of
probably
that.
said
just
she
as
can read.
fast.
She
You gotta
can
be
read and
willing.
write and understand colors too. Recognize
Actually,
colors.
that's what he said too. Because he looked at it, he's like, "Well, I liked," because we met online. He's like, "I liked your profile." He's like, "It was this, it was that." He's like, "I wanted to talk to you." He's like, "I thought you were attractive." I said, "Okay." I saw his profile. I was like, I kept it in the inbox, and I said, And of course, I went on a date with somebody who was
Swipe
like,
to the left.
I didn't even bother. And
Everybody, clap your hands.
because it was like crazy because I saw his profile and I was like, no, let me just keep it in here. Let me just keep it in the side. And I went out with somebody else who was like more my type. And that did not work out.
That never works. Ever.
And so I came back to it and I was like, what do I have to lose? So I read the profile and I was like,
Trying to
sounds
find
normal.
your way back.
You know what my mom and my sister said when I brought Nate home, right? Well, you could probably tell it
I'm set
better.
up for this one.
What did you think when I brought him home? Because nobody thought that Nate was going to look the way Nate looked when I brought him home.
He just didn't fit the molds of what she was usually dating, bringing home, and things like that. Very different. But I loved his personality, and I
wow,
thought
thank you.
that y'all just really complimented. No, I thought you were handsome too.
Well, thank you.
They
Well,
put
thank you,
that in
sis.
there, like,
Thank you,
She
sis.
said,
It's
"You got a
not
brother?"
just-
That's what Tiffany said. Tiffany was like, "You got a
Boy,
brother?"
let me tell y'all when I said I was gonna propose, it was like, okay, where's the ring? Where is it at? We don't see nothing.
Yeah.
I had to go through the test, and then I showed them, and they was like, "Ooh, that's
They
nice.
did their job.
You did a good job."
Yeah. Time for the upgrade, baby. Time for the upgrade.
Was it 14 years now?
It's
Yeah,
crazy.
going on 14. We've been together 15. Yeah.
14.
But yeah, we really had to talk to him and talk, get to know him
Yeah.
before, we just said okay to it. And in the end, it's always going to be her decision, or whomever,
Right.
But I said,
He knew
I
Jesse,
got a
though.
good feeling.
He knew Jesse.
Yeah, I taught their
Yes.
brother.
Yeah.
I taught their brother.
He walked upstairs.
Yep.
She was like, "Mr. Patterson." I was like,
Oh.
And then I got
Slightly
to
awkward.
Dad. He was like, "What do you think? What do you want to date her for? Do you really love her? What's your motive?" I was like, "Oh, here."
That's right. Running down that.
he did. He got to. He got to.
But I passed
I'm
the
baby
test.
girl.
Baby girl.
I passed
That's
the
right.
test, Lord.
Oh my God.
He did. Flying colors.
He did.
Nice.
Yeah.
And now you're like his son.
Yeah.
You know, you're like his
I be
son.
trying.
You're a good son. Praise God.
Awesome. So let's talk a little bit about survival versus thrival.
Because in those relationships, you have to know what you're in it for. Survival is just that. It's basically living day to day.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to make it to the end of the day. If we're thriving, we're kind of rolling up on that building block of survival, and we're just going to see above that and see what we can do.
I like that.
Okay.
So it's a matter of putting forth more effort probably than you would normally. Like survival for me and my fiance is just basically day to day. Like right now, if we're not having a good day, if it's like a mental health issue, whatever, it's like, we're just going to try to go to work. We're just going to try to get through the day. Like check in every so often. How you doing?
Oh, check-ins
How's it
are
going?
important.
It's important. But then when we're talking about thriving, it's like that thrival is that therapist appointment we got first thing in the morning.
Right.
Yeah.
So I know my other sister, Tiffany, always talks about how men try to check your temperature.
Yeah.
Right? So they'll call you during the day, even when they know they've done something. No, I'm
Yeah.
just kidding. I'm just kidding. But when they know they've done something, they'll try to like check
You want
your
the cross
temperature.
eye, or you want the lazy eye.
Yeah.
So is that like a thing like with
Yes.
a lot of couples?
Yeah.
Where they try to just check your temperature
yeah.
with that. By just checking in.
Men and women do it.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh no, my favorite is when they send a text. They don't even call. They send a text.
Yep.
It's so difficult to tell a tone in a text message, though.
No, but it depends on the wording. Like I check the temperature with my fiance through text sometimes because I know he's working, but I can tell based off of, because he's so expressive. He's everything I'm not in that respect. So if I don't get and this is going to sound a bit, but this is who he is. He's a hopeless romantic. He's that person. I don't get no doggone emojis. Like yesterday, I was like, you want me to bring you something? Sure. Exactly. Thank you. That's not normally him. His whole thing is like, he'll try a sentence. I'll get an okay with a bunch of fake. I'm like, sure. Okay, that means you're still feeling your kind of way. Jennifer knows to proceed with caution. Okay, I know what I'm getting now.
Oh my God, you sound just like my wife.
You know, I'm like, I'm proceeding with caution, so I'm seeing them, and I'm like, how are you doing? What's going on? And he'll tell me what happened, and I'm like, okay. I was like, well, brought you something. He go, coffee. Got you some espresso in it. He go, that'll bring you through the rest of the day.
I think sometimes people aren't aware that they even do that, though. But I know, like, with me, somebody had to tell me, one of my coworkers had to tell me, like, well, you had an attitude. I'm like, I didn't have an attitude. She said, you answered everything with one word. Yeah. And when I'm irritated, I tend to just, like, yes, no, okay, sure, great, thanks. And they're like, yeah, like, you're irritated. That's how people can tell. Yeah. But I didn't know I did that until somebody brought it to my attention, you know? Yeah. So I think, again, when we talk about communication, just, you know, communicating and knowing how...
And also communicating that with your significant other, that's what you see.
Yeah. Yeah.
And being open to receiving that observation. I don't even call it criticism. Being open to receiving it. Because you can't get defensive with me and tell me, no, I don't do that. You're doing it now.
Right.
You don't even realize you're doing it. Like, and when I told Jason about it before, we would, like I told you, we had this discussion a week ago, probably. We were just talking. I think it was right after I agreed to do the podcast. And he and I were just talking about how far we had come with our therapist. We were like, yo, we have done some serious work. Like, don't you know?
Awesome.
Because the arguing was like, it was intense. It wasn't bad, but it was just intense.
Yeah.
And so I had to tell him, I'm like, this is how you are when you argue. And he's like, this is how you are when you argue. And I have to be open to the fact that, okay, so now I have to catch myself. And now he has to catch himself. Right. And now we're doing more thinking before we speak. We're not always perfect at it, but we try. Right. And it's also about understanding the intention behind the tone.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And not taking things so personally.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because my thing is, like, he's like, you don't get bothered by it. I'm like, I ain't do nothing. All I did was show up. Why I gotta get upset?
And it makes me think about what we discussed before about playing fair, not hitting below the belt.
Right. There are rules.
For real.
Right. No, but there are rules, and I've always had the rule that I've had with families and couples. The name of the game is to take your person, probably take them down a peg, is not to take them out.
Take them down a peg. Okay.
So if they're going off and all this other, I'm not about to join you.
Right.
And I have said that to him before. I was like, I'm not going to give you what you want. And that's what that's what I told him in the beginning when we first got started, right before the marriage, right before the couples council. I was like, I'm not giving you what you want. I'm not going to join you. I'm not going to yell at you. I'm not going to do that. We're not doing that.
Right.
That is not on the table today. So you can be a victim by yourself. We're not doing that.
It's not on the menu.
It's not. Yeah. So we took each other down a peg, but the name of the game was not to take the other person out because we don't do well that way.
Yeah, just don't go for the jugular.
No, because you know, after a while, you know your person's buttons.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So why would you intentionally go for it unless you know where you're going?
Yes, ma'am.
Don't aim for that person. Don't gut punch them if you don't know where you're going. So I have to be very intentional. If I'm going to go for it, that means in my brain, I already knew I was going to do that. And there's a point to it. If there's no point to it, I don't even bother.
Right.
Because I can play dirty. I know everybody's ace cards for the most part. I could take you out and go to bed.
It makes me kind of think about that game Battleship.
Yes. I could sink the whole thing and go to bed and be totally okay. Right. But that's not what's going to make things better.
Right.
It's not going to make the relationship better. It's probably going to make you look at me differently. It's not a good place to be.
In the end, is that really the goal?
It's never the goal.
And you hurt
that's
yourself,
true.
too, because that's your significant other. So
Yeah.
you become one.
You don't
You're
want to
hurting
do that.
yourself.
But it's okay to have rules in your relationship. Some people have this rule, we don't go to bed angry. Shoot, some of us, yes, we do. I got work in the morning. I might need, let me be honest here. If I got work
If
in the
I could
morning,
pull my hair.
if I have work in the morning, you have work in the morning, and we get into an argument, say about 10 or 11 p.m., we're going to say a lot of things to each other that we probably don't need to be saying. There's a such thing called, and kids have it all the time, called a timeout.
Yeah.
Take your butt to bed and have a timeout. Come back to me when you are making sense. We need to have a timeout. Let all this anger part dissipate. Come back with what the real problem is in the morning. Sometimes you need to sleep on it. Because I'm not about to stay up until the wee hours of the morning arguing. And then I'm going to be pissed off at work. No, we're not doing that.
But see, the
I'm not
best
doing
thing
that.
about doing that as a married couple is making up.
Yeah, see, after that point, I am so heated after that. I'm like, I'm already.
God, let you do it. And it is not a sin at that point. Praise God.
I be sitting up in here, I'm like,
6 of them bad boys. 6.
I don't keep track. I try not to, like, have people keep score all the time. I know you do in the back of your mind, but I try not to make that so evident to everybody that that's what we're doing.
The Bible says that love does not keep a record of wrongs.
That's so true.
Oh, yes.
So that's important.
Lord, that's what it says.
You
First
try,
Corinthians?
you try not to. You
Chapter
try.
13. Yeah.
I don't, in arguments, I try. I try not to. I do not curse.
Yeah.
I don't name call. I don't curse. It's sort of like boxing or something where they give you the rules before you go knock each other out.
Yep.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Don't hit below the belt. Keep it clean. Don't do this. Don't do that. Don't. Well, what the heck are we arguing for? I'm going to bed. What the heck am I arguing with you for?
Right.
You have to come correct. You have to say.
Yeah.
And so I usually say, all right, I need a moment. So we have a system where if we're having a moment and the other person gets quiet, we have to catch each other, which we have. Do you need to process? So I started doing this with a lot of clients where it's the trigger, process, response model that I learned for myself. Where you get triggered, and sometimes people go from trigger to reaction very quickly. And so that's where things go wrong. So instead, if you can catch yourself, you need a break.
Yeah.
I need to go back. I need to process. You are allowed to leave the house. You're allowed to work out. You're allowed to do whatever you need to do as long as you come back. And you guys eventually talk about it. That's the important thing, coming back to talk about it. Some people take it very literally, and they go, and nobody ever talks. And so it gets swept under the rug. And I'm like, y'all never talked about it? No. You should have. Why didn't anybody address what the real problem was? Because you are not fighting over this one shallow thing. You're probably fighting over something else.
I get triggered every time somebody says the word Chromebook. Chromebook. Okay, I'm sorry. I just can't. I can't.
Don't.
Too many during the
Occupational
pandemic. I
hazard.
can't.
I'm
work.
sorry.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
That don't make no
It's
sense.
okay. It's okay.
It's too many.
It's
Don't say it
okay.
again.
It's okay. It's all right.
Well, listen, Dr. Jen, my girl, we are so happy that you were able to spend a little time on this couch here with us and just talk about so many important things.
Yes.
I think that it's important for us to be able to appreciate the neurodiversity amongst us, from the people in our family to our spouses and the people we're dating. Don't count someone out just because they're dealing with, a mental illness.
Exactly.
But understand that you need to understand more about it.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I think it's been fun. I think we
always
learned
fun.
a lot.
Yes.
This
Ooh,
session
Lord.
was jam-packed with tons of information.
I told y'all I was going to get delivered.
I am. I started my practice. That's what we do at Tabula Rasa Psychotherapy. No,
Yes,
Absolutely.
yes.
Where are you located at?
I am located on your Chromebook.
Chromebook.
It is 100% telehealth
Just a click
that's what's
away.
up.
because we just did a lot of stuff during the pandemic. And so you learned about that. Just like my fiance started his business because he's a chef. So he's at soulexpressionsdining.net where he'll actually come to your home and cook.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's how he got me. That's how he proposed. He made the whole meal.
See, they know the way to
Love
your heart. I'm
it.
telling you.
Oh,
Because this
because-
man over there can cook.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, they know how to get you.
Man, I
I
still
can
got
do a
pictures
little
of the food. I was
something,
like, this is what he made
Keep
me, and
those
this is
down.
what I got. I'm like, this is what happened, peoples. But yeah, it's like one of those things. But you also have to look at the reality check. It's great. So mental health is definitely up. It's something that people need to take advantage of.
Yes,
and
ma'am.
can't stress this enough. Mental health is, and it should be, but it definitely is because we're legally bound. It's basically 100% confidential. So there's nothing wrong with a person getting therapy.
Thank you for saying that.
We're bound by law not to say anything. So it's not one of those things, well, they have to say that. No, it's really not. We're bound by law. We have malpractice insurance and everything. We can't say anything.
Right.
So we have to keep it 100%. Even our online components and everything, HIPAA compliant, so that nobody can break in. Everything is encrypted. So we have to make it that easy for us to access, that difficult for outsiders to get in.
Thank you for saying that, 'cause I think especially in the Black community, a lot of people don't want to get help, you know, and even, you know, in the church, we all pray and we all should continue to pray and, you know, seek God. But I think it's important that if you need help, go get it. There's nothing wrong with getting mental help or talking to a counselor or a psychologist. And you can find a great one at Tabula Rasa with telehealth with Dr. Jen. Dr. Jen, thank you so much for coming on the show.
My girl, Dr. Jen.
Glad to have you today.
Awesome. Thank you.
If you guys would like to follow us, we are on Instagram at Life in Mid-Flight. We're also on Facebook, Jasia Patterson, Stacy Richardson, Nathan Patterson.
What up, y'all?
And Dr. Jen, please give your Instagram account, please. So somebody wants to follow you.
Tabula Rasa Psychotherapy. Tab Rasa Psychotherapy.
All right.
I follow Sia anyway, so that's good. Just jump right on.
Yeah, you can follow us at Life in Mid-Flight. You can find Dr. Jen. She's one of my friends. Thank you so much for coming. We really do appreciate you.
Thank you.
And all your knowledge.
And a big up to Bravery Studios, y'all. What's up? All right.
Like, and Nate is like really, really social. Yeah.